So then I spent about 8 years of personal budget all at one time. But he didn't have to hassle me when he started to see everything get shipped to the house because he knew I had a personal budget that I hadn't been spending. So it also allows you not to worry about micromanaging your spouse, which can save a lot of stress as well. So just kind of think through that a little bit about how your financial world in your relationship, how you can become more unified there, and how you can actually use finances to strengthen your relationship. Because oftentimes we think about paying the bills and such as just something pragmatic that we've got to get done, but it is an opportunity for relationship growth as we work through that in a unifying way. Okay? Anything else you want to add? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to emotional intimacy. This will be the last topic that we cover tonight. So when we meet next time, we'll be picking up with the other two topics in the we section. But tonight is emotional intimacy. And this first quote here is by John Gottman. He's one of the nation's leading foremost researchers in marriage, and I'll talk more about him in a minute. He says this: in the strongest marriages, husband and wife share a deep sense of meaning. They don't just get along. They also support each other's hopes and aspirations and build a sense of purpose into their lives together. So, I think all the men probably just checked out of the room, okay? So I'm going to give a little booster, try to convert the men moment here. So hopefully you guys will appreciate this. But don't worry, men, when we talk about sex, I'll do the same thing for you guys next time. Is this a woman thing that you men just have to tolerate? And I'm going to give you some research to tell you, no, this isn't just a woman thing. This is a human thing. We all need emotional intimacy. So in 2012, just very recently, a study came out called the Grant Study. And it was a longitudinal study where they looked at the lives of Harvard graduates who were men, and they followed them for 75 years. So it's just amazing. Amazing data. And they found this. They found a good marriage and other emotionally intimate relationships, such as with mothers, fathers and siblings, and close friends, as factors to what they called an optimum life. Intimate relationships influenced very real aspect of the men's life. So one example that is important, a lot of the men are generally the breadwinners in their homes here, so they looked at income. The 58 men with the highest scores regarding warm relationships made about $150,000 per year more than the 31 men in the study with the worst scores. Now, why is that important? These were all Harvard graduates. They all had the capacity to make quite a good living. And yet, the relationships that they had in their lives, which created a sense of healthiness for them, allowed them to be more successful and to bring in more in their lives. Personal happiness, they looked at, as well as income. The most successful marriage in the Grant study also produced the happiest man in the study. So do you want to be happy? I generally would like to be happy in my life. I think most of us would have that goal. So if you want to be happy, if you want to make more money, emotional intimacy is important. So Valent said this, and he was the main researcher in this. The 75 years and $20 million, okay, $20 million to learn this, on the Grant study points, at least to me, to a straightforward 5-word conclusion. Happiness is love, full stop. In short, it was the capacity for intimate relationships that predicted flourishing in all aspects of these men's lives. So we go back to the question that we started with, is this just a woman thing? It's not just a woman thing. This is a human thing. Valent concluded, the more the men became able to appreciate shared dependence as an opportunity rather than a threat, and I think that's a really important phrase, that this shared dependence is an opportunity rather than a threat, the more positive feelings they expressed about their marriages. So this is a really exciting thing. This has been published. It's actually a book. You can read it on Amazon if you'd like to read more about this. But this is a really important thing because I do marriage therapy, right? And a lot of you in your marriages have experienced that we women like to talk. And you men get really irritated with us a lot of the time when we're talking quite a bit longer than you think it needed to occur. So the opportunity to look at emotional intimacy as an opportunity This is a way that I can not only strengthen my marriage and support my wife, but this is an opportunity for me also to be healthy and to be happy is really important.
Okay. I have a demanding job and have served in busy priesthood leadership callings for most of the marriage. For a prolonged period, I was having a difficult time managing the stress and was very unhappy and felt trapped by my obligations. Rather than open up to my wife, I kept all of it bottled up so that she wouldn't worry. I became aloof. My wife and family got the short end of the stick, and we were the easy outlet for my frustration. Pride kept me from sharing my struggles with my wife. I created a wedge in our marriage. After struggling for a significant period of time, I humbled myself and opened up to my wife. It was only after I was willing to be emotionally vulnerable that our relationship began to heal. The problems haven't completely gone away, but my eternal companion is now at my side, where she should be in supporting me. It is like a light being switched on in a dark room. Hope and happiness have returned. And I found that even in my own experiences in my relationship with Deborah, there are times where I've noticed that she'll be really frustrated if I hold something in for a few days, or I'm trying to work through something and I'm trying to figure it out, and then all of a sudden I'll say, I'm really having a hard time, and I've had a hard time for like the last 2-3 days on this thing, and she'll go, why in the world couldn't you share that? Why are you holding it, right? And I'm learning that process. I'm a very private person, and even in my marriage, I'm very private in many ways, and because I think I can handle it. But it is always a special relief for me to be able to share with Deborah, and she jumps on that, and she loves it. She loves to be able to feel that peace that comes to both of us as we share some of our personal struggles.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how do we do emotional intimacy? What does that mean? What does that look like in our relationships? So there is a branch of psychology called positive psychology. Maybe you haven't heard of that. Abnormal psychology is kind of the one most people are familiar with, which is the study of the disorders like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. That's abnormal psychology. Positive psychology is a branch of psychology that studies normal, healthy people. And their goal is to find out how they can take normal, healthy people and make them flourish and have them be happier and healthier in their lives. So positive psychology has found that individuals tend to flourish when their positive to negativity ratio is 3-to-1. So if you're a single person and you're going through your life and you're going to school and you're working your jobs, if you have 3 positives to every negative in your life, you're feeling pretty good and you're feeling pretty happy. There's a higher standard in marriage, in relationships, so we cannot be lazy. Researchers have found that couples who will rate themselves as happily married, they believe, hey, yeah, I'm happily married, they have a ratio of 5-to-1. So for every one negative, and what's a negative? Anything that causes some strain. Anything that is, misunderstanding, a strain, a stress, a word, right? A bad glance, anything that can create some negativity there becomes one of those number ones. You need to have 5 positive interactions for every one of those. And it's important to note there's always going to be the one. We're never going to eradicate all negativity or trials from our relationship. So it would be unreasonable to say, well, it's going to be 5-0. There's never going to be a problem in our relationship, except that you're going to have the problems. And so by doing that, this already opens up to say, when I acknowledge those problems, I need to be more hypervigilant about creating some more positives, because we want to inoculate our relationship against those trials. So one way that we do that is by increasing our emotional bank account. Gottman uses that phrase. I think it's a great metaphor because, as we just talked about finances, we all have to deal with finances. You can't see anything, can you? Sorry.
Scoot back a little farther.
Yeah.
There you go.
Is that?
Keep going.
You still can't see. All right. So we all have to deal with money. So we're all familiar with how a bank account works. And you know that if you put money into a bank account, you can take money out and use it. But if you don't put money in and you try to take a withdrawal, it doesn't work so well, right? So I want you to think about your relationship and emotional intimacy as an emotional bank account. If you are building, and you've got $1 million in your emotional bank account, and you have to take a withdrawal, because you will, the withdrawals will come, and you have to take a $20 withdrawal, How does that feel? You got $1 million. Are you worried about a $20 withdrawal? Does it hurt you? Does it negatively impact you in any way? You might have $20 less on the actual spreadsheet, but you don't feel it, right? What happens if you have $15 in your bank account and you try to take a $20 withdrawal? It's really painful and maybe is going to completely bankrupt you. So the withdrawals will come, and we're not going to prevent that. So we need to be building the bank account and be continually putting in deposits, and we build those deposits over time. It's not something that we can just be nice to our spouse one weekend and think everything's going to be good. We need to build those deposits daily, weekly, and yearly. So I have a picture here of one way that my husband has done this over time. Knowing my personal routine, my husband took advantage of that, and he knows I work out in the morning, and I don't typically eat breakfast until after I work out, and then I go to the fridge to get out my smoothie that maybe I made the day before. So this was something I found inside the refrigerator, taped to the shelf in the refrigerator by my smoothie one day. So he'd been gone to work already for several hours. I come up from my workout, I open the fridge to get my smoothie, and I find this. How am I feeling about my husband as soon as I found this? Oh, he's so sweet, right? And gooey and gushy. And then what do? I called him on the phone. Oh, I just found something in the refrigerator. All of a sudden, this thing that took him how many seconds to draw? 3 seconds.
No, that took years.
How long did he spend taping it in there? I mean, this whole thing was probably a minute of his life. All of a sudden, that 1 minute effort turned into lots of minutes of positive feelings. And then it built our relationship, not only in how I felt about him, but then now I'm connecting with him as I call him on the phone, and now we're having another positive interaction. So it can be very, very small things. If you'll switch over, hon. Small things work together over time to build an emotional bank account that will serve to offset difficulties. We read in Alma 37, by very small means the Lord doth confound the wise, and bringeth about the salvation of many, and we've added the word marriages. These do not have to be hard things. The big trips to Europe, if you've got the money and you don't have kids at home, great, that's fun. But those are not going to build the bank account the way the daily little tiny things are. So what can you do? We like to send little texts to each other throughout the day. It takes 10 seconds. Hey, I'm thinking about you, hope you're having a good day. A phone call, a note on the pillow, making a favorite meal. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. Maybe go into DI with your wife, honey, when she likes to bargain shop. He does. I still have never gotten him on board with the bargain shopping. I cannot get him to go yard sailing with me. I actually kind of enjoy that stuff, but anyway, we're still a work in progress. But when you think about building your emotional bank account, I want you to think about simple things that don't take a lot of time, because if it's a burden, you're not going to do it. Right? Not more than once or twice at least. So think about very little things that you can do every day to show your spouse your commitment, that you are prioritizing them, that you're putting them first, that you care about their welfare, that you have positive feelings for them. And in that measure, that bank account will build. So when you have that $1 million emotional bank account, when you need to take the $20 or $50 or even $100 or even a $5,000 withdrawal with something big that comes, you're inoculated against that, and it's not a threat to your relationship. Anything else you want to say there?
That's it.
Okay. Another way to build your emotional bank account, we just talked about kind of adding positivity to your relationship, but there's another way to do it. And the other way to do it is by noticing the good things that are already happening. So in Gottman's research, he found, and I never finished telling you about Gottman. Let me just tell you about him. If you ever need a good self-help book on marriage, Google Gottman's name and you'll find something you're happy with. He's the nation's leading researcher on marriage. He has his quarters are in Seattle, and he has a love lab. It's an apartment that they have hooked up with many, many video cameras, and they have couples go live there for several days, a weekend or whatever, and they will instruct them to have conversations with the potential for conflict. And they video all these fights, all these discussions, arguments, and then they code it all and do all their research stuff, and they get all this great data. So he is the one, if you read anything from him, everything that he talks about is very research, data driven, and it's good stuff. So You can ask me more about him another time. So he said in his research they found that those in happy marriages noticed almost all of the positive things their partners did for them. So calling your spouse after you find something that they left for you. You're noticing it, you're acknowledging it, that's now creating positive interaction. Those in unhappy marriages failed to recognize 50%. So it's not that good things weren't happening in those marriages. Good things were happening and the people were missing it. Probably because they were focused on, hey, we're not happy. And when you're not happy, right, you're looking for things that support that view. And so good things were happening and they weren't even noticing. 50% is an F, right? For those in the world of academia, 50% is not appropriate. It's not a passing grade. So one thing that we can do in addition to trying to build positive sentiment by doing kind things is we can be more aware and notice when our spouse does kind things for us. And we can not only appreciate that, but then we can take it a step further and acknowledge that to them. And now we also create another positive experience there.
Well, so, that's it
First time.
for tonight. I love being with this person right here next to me. I love her so much. We have grown in our 10 years, our past 10 years together. We ought to be having some of you up here that are on your 50 years, sharing all sorts of ideas. And, but you are great examples to all of us. And so thank you for your love and your support. Yeah. And so, as we talked about before, so next time we'll finish up the week in the marriage with physical intimacy. It's BYU-approved physical intimacy, so don't be too concerned that we'll be too open. We're not going to embarrass anybody. We'll talk about conflict resolution, and communication. And then we'll talk about the V in marriage. How do we bring Heavenly Father into marriages and the principles that are foundational there. And so we look forward to that. That'll be next month, the second Thursday is what it is. Second Thursday of each month for the study meeting. Next month, February 9th. You want to say anything else? You're good?